You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you might not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, we go week to week talking about something, breaking down one of our streaming favorites, and today primarily talking about the third episode of this third season of Euphoria. A very eventful episode, to say the least, but many other things happening, streaming content that is very popular right now. And a couple of points, by the way, Darren, this episode will probably not publish immediately after this because I'm having an issue with my podcast platform right now. But this is a little bit of news for whenever this episode actually gets published and people get to hear it sometime later this week, that I'm probably moving to a podcast network, and there'll be opportunities to cross-promote with other podcasters, and pretty exciting. So they'll have some pretty cool things to come, and keep everybody in the loop, and can't wait to bring you in on some of this when and if. There's still an if as to whether this is going to happen, but Darren, I'll definitely keep you in the loop there. And of course, just launched the Patreon recently. So a lot of things happen all at once. Pretty exciting stuff.
That does sound exciting. Yeah, good to chat with you again, Victor. And yeah, looking forward to some upcoming changes. Yeah.
Definitely keep you in the loop on that for sure. And maybe we'll find you a podcaster on this new network that maybe is in your geographical area. There's something more local for our conversation, someone that might accommodate your schedule more than mine. But let's see how that all works out. Okay, a whole bunch of things to cover here that I actually watched as well. Where do you want to start, Darren? Should we start with, you caught up with Margot? And maybe that's a good place to start because I think it's somewhat popular. I think it is a good show. I'm very much enjoying these first 4 episodes. And you caught up with it. And also an interesting pairing with this very show, Euphoria. So how are you enjoying it so far?
Well, look, I'm a bit broke at the moment because I'm sending all my money to Wang Mangler 99. I'm loving this show. You're actually interrupting me because I'm midway through episode 4. I'm trying to catch up to have the conversation. But yeah, this girl, this Fanning girl, Elle Fanning, she is absolutely delightful. She spends a lot of the time topless, but it's completely natural and it just works within the world of this show. And I'm really loving it. It's so joyful and I'm thinking about it constantly, perhaps because I just binged a few episodes yesterday. Yeah, great show. So funny. I'm on board with all the characters. Nick Offerman is like a revelation. I didn't realize he could play someone like this. I thought he was like a middle-aged man 15 years ago, but now he's just this kind of fallen action hero. He's amazing. I'm on board with Michelle Pfeiffer's character as well. She's just so funny and brilliant. And yeah, I love where this show is going. It's fascinating and joyful. I'm not on board with the opening titles. I can't watch them for some reason. I skip them every time. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, interesting. I always love opening titles and I always like to settle in and watch them to get into the mood of this show. But for some reason, I skip these.
Same thing with Your Friends and Neighbors, where I cannot watch that title sequence. A big miss on there to not change that title sequence for season 2.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I always put myself through that title sequence in the first season. For some reason, I was just like, "Why am I watching this again?" But yeah, interesting. I haven't sampled season 2 yet.
You know, unlike us loving every single week of watching Mobland with that great song. You know, I remember watching The Agency and having to hear Jack White sing that horrible cover of that U2 song. So anyway. It's hit and miss with these things.
I think I put myself through that each week as well.
I skipped it. And I skipped this, like you mentioned, I skipped the title sequence for Margot's Got Money Troubles every week. But the show in general. Are you
still on board with this show?
Oh, yeah. Love it. The Nicole Kidman, by the way, you've probably seen her already, but she's one of the producers on the show, and she finally arrives in episode 4. I think you've probably seen her already. But Maybe not.
Not yet. I think not yet.
But I won't spoil who she plays, but it's pretty entertaining as well. But so it's still evolving at episode 4, halfway through the season, and a lot of fun. And so far, I mean, it's so funny to see it in counterpoint to Euphoria. And this, like you said, this kind of jubilant discovery of herself and empowering herself with this sex work versus what happens in Euphoria. Although things are probably going to get dodgier on that show as well over time.
Yeah, it's kind of triggering as well because it takes me back to when my children were babies and there was problems with breastfeeding. Obviously, my problems pale in comparison to the mother, but it still definitely takes me back remembering the troubles around that and how stressful that can be. So yeah, even though it's a light comedy, there is also a lot of stuff in there to think about.
Oh, thank God the colicky baby passed. Although that, of course, you like you said, very triggering if you've been through that. But, thank goodness that the baby's relatively quiet now. And Nick Offerman is a great babysitter, apparently. So.
Oh, he's awesome. I want him as a housemate. Just constant cleaning.
Yeah, clean everything. Exactly. And teach me some wrestling moves in between.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's been a lot of fun. What else? Oh, so what did your wife and daughter think of the Michael movie? I have not seen it, but I've heard a lot about it, obviously. It opened with well over $200 million over the weekend, which kind of not unexpected. Has not played in Japan yet, by the way, which is like a real wild card as to whether this thing makes $1 billion or not, because Michael Jackson is absolutely massive in Japan. However, American films have not been playing well in Japan, so there's kind of a wild card there. But I mean, if it plays out not well from this point on, it'll probably make $600 million, probably more than that, but it can go much higher than that, which is just speaks to this enduring popularity of Michael Jackson, obviously. And pretty sanitized from what I've heard. Again, have not seen the film, but a pretty sanitized version of his rise. I guess I don't know if you knew this, Darren, but this was a 3-hour and 15-minute movie or something. And they cut it off at this moment for a number of reasons, where I think part of it was to keep the story less complicated. Also, it turned out that even in the agreement with the families that had made the charges, they couldn't be represented at all in fictional works. So they had to cut them out of the film completely. And this kind of broke the back half of the film. So they just excised the rest of his career, and they end at the end of his Bad tour, which is kind of like the peak of his fame. And so it kind of gives you this rise to fame storyline, which I guess is probably what people want to see, but it does kind of ignore all of the massive controversies that would come later in his career.
Yeah, I did listen to your conversation with Sona about this. So it was very interesting to hear some of the backstory, and also you and her kind of background with Michael Jackson and his music and how that can play into this film. Yeah, my wife and child came home yesterday and very conflicted about watching it. She was... Yeah, I spent the night listening to her reading reviews of this movie. She felt almost guilty tapping her foot and dancing in her chair when the movie completely ignores all the controversy around his life. And she said the kid would nonstop ask her questions. Why is he having a second nose job? Why is his skin white? Is he gay? All these things that play into the film that the film does not interact with at all. So it was really interesting. I gave my money for them to see it, but I'm not going to see this film. I know I'm going to have massive issues with it, so I'm just going to avoid it. Maybe I'll catch it when it plays on streaming. But yeah, I wasn't a massive fan of Bohemian Rhapsody, and it just sounds like it's another cookie cutter, whitewashed thing like that. So apologies to anyone who's a massive fan. I was a massive fan of his music, but yeah, not anymore.
I mean, the crazy, I have very problematic feelings about him as well. But even at the time, I didn't think his output of music was as good post-Thriller, obviously. I mean, not obviously, but that was my general opinion. I know some people really love some of the later work, but, his popularity definitely decreased over time. He had fewer and fewer hits as time went forward. Although it is amazing to just look at. I was just looking at, this is Michael Jackson playlist on Spotify. And even though there's a lot of those songs I really don't like later in his career specifically, that as I'm reading the titles, that I can still play the songs in my mind, which is just to speak to the fact that even the next 2, 3 records or so that for the next 10 years, 15 years, maybe, he continued to have songs that were like in popular culture. So it's just a phenomenal success and achievement for him. And I mentioned, I don't know if you've ever seen that documentary about the making of Thriller, but I do recommend that, as just, and it does kind of allow you to indulge in that period of time and the phenomenon of the album and the making of the album and appreciate his incredible creativity without getting into the stuff that came later on. But of course, it is still tainted because that were actions that he had afterwards. But for me, in general, what's fascinating in making these projects, and of course, what I'm about to say, I know it doesn't make any sense because people would not want to see these movies. But the stories that I find fascinating is this person who is driven to be the most famous person in the world and then achieves it. And then it still doesn't fix their misery and then becomes an abuser in the way that he was abused in some ways, or maybe even worse so. And then how everybody looks the other way. Like everything that's wrong with fame, with America, with the fantasy of fame, with the lie of rich success and this panacea of everything that's wrong with the culture is all in his story. And everybody's just like, we got to cut all that stuff out. And I'm like, isn't that what makes this interesting in the first place? Like, why does nobody want to explore what makes this story really fascinating? And I understand, like, it wouldn't be something you take your kids to see, but you should at least toy with that. I mean, it's just so crazy when you have these people, these famous biopics where all these people have extremely complicated and troubling histories and all that stuff gets cut out so they could just like play a jukebox of all their hits. I'm like, I could do that on Spotify. I mean, what's the point of a movie? I just don't get it, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. That sounds like a much more fascinating film to watch. Another thing my wife said is that Janet Jackson is nowhere in the film. I mean, she's a superstar in her own right.
She doesn't exist. She doesn't exist in the world of this film, which is absolutely insane.
Crazy.
And apparently Diana Ross was also a main character in the film, and all her scenes were cut out for some reason. I think because Diana Ross, the actual person, not the actress who played the role, did not want to be in the film. So they cut those scenes out too. So again, you can only imagine how many different versions of this film exist. And this is what comes out, which of course is probably like the most milquetoast and most sanitized version of it, which is probably why it's so popular. As crazy as that sounds. So.
And the kid said the same thing as when she came home from Wicked. She's like, it's a to be continued. There's no part 2.
Well, the crazy thing about that is think about how much money this is going to make. And then like part 2, yeah, it like opens on him. Like there's literally a scene that was cut out. That's part of the second half where the police arrive and it's him looking at himself in the mirror and the lights flashing behind him. I'm like, if they have the courage to take that and expand it into a 2-hour film, and maybe I'm wrong about all this. Maybe this project is to say, here's the rise and there's the fall. That would be a fascinating potential project if that's the goal, which I doubt that's the case because the family has final say on what gets shown in the theaters. So I do not believe at all what I'm saying is going to be correct. But if they actually follow through with that, that would be like the least popular film of the year. This would be like Joker 1 and Joker 2. So it's not going to get made that way is what I'm trying to say. And by the way, the music itself, just like Wicked, I guess, that the music in the rest of the film is not going to hold up to Thriller and all his early classics, plus of course Off the Wall, which is my favorite Michael Jackson album. So I'm like, you're not going to have like everything after that is like, Bad has a few good songs on it, in my opinion. And then everything after that, it's like really diminishing returns. So, I mean, like, I don't think that they're going to have and by the way, I thought Bad was already a downgrade from Thriller by significantly. I like Smooth Operator, for example, but I don't like Bad. I don't like that single, but that's already in this movie. So that's where the cutoff is. So it's like everything beyond Bad is not good. No pun intended.
Yeah, right. Well, I was a kid when Bad came out, so that was my jam when that came out. I was 9 or 10 or whatever.
That was your Thriller, yeah, exactly. Thriller was
exactly.
Thriller was my Thriller. Your Bad was your Thriller.
Yeah. Well, I do have tickets to this. The stage show is coming out later this year here in the city, so we're going to go as a family to see that. So That might be interesting, but yeah, I'm not holding out too much hope. But
I mean, I
we'll
think
see.
that's from what I've heard, that's people love that as well. But I think it's mostly just a jukebox musical as well. So
Yeah, not my favorite type of musical, but yeah, why not?
okay, something we did watch. That's about something we didn't watch, but it's very popular. Something that probably more people watched this weekend, by the way, as crazy as it sounds, because of Netflix's draw, was Apex. Did you finish Apex by chance?
I finished Apex, yes.
Was it worth? I warned you off of it. I told you don't bother watching the rest of it. But okay, so what did you think of it?
Yeah, look, I had actually high hopes for it, and I thought it started pretty cool with Eric Bana, Charlize Theron. By the way, Charlize Theron, she's 50 years old. She looks
Incredible.
immaculate. Yeah. And the way that the amount of physical exertion she puts her through in this acting role is really commendable. And she's the only reason, no, I won't say she's the only reason to watch this, because our mate Taron Egerton is doing this shit-eating grin, this smarmy character. It's not an ideal Australian accent, but it's close.
He is Australian, no?
I don't think he is. No, absolutely not.
Oh, you know what? There's so many Egertons. I thought that he was one of the Australians, but no, you're right. He's not.
He's a different Egerton.
He's played Australian before. He was in that Hugh Jackman movie where he was a skier. You know what I'm talking about? I think that's an Australian skier, no?
He was, Eddie the Eagle.
Yes.
Again, British.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't see the movie. That's my so just this. Do you want to apologize for anybody who just thought I just branded everybody as Australian? Hugh Jackman was in it. I didn't see the movie. I was thinking Australian.
It's a good film. That was a good film. Yeah, Eddie the Eagle. Yeah, fascinating character. I finished Apex, and it was not what I thought it was going to be, and I cannot recommend it. Yeah, that's all I can say.
I mean, if you want to have spoilers on it, I have a very specific reason. I just really turned on the movie. Like, I hated the movie by the end of it. And part of it was, by the way, I watched this. My sister was over. It was my daughter's birthday party. And she was over, and we started watching this. And everybody said the same thing, like, oh my God, look at her face. Like, everybody's just bowled over by Charlize Theron's incredible face. But I mean, it starts with the whole, like, the dangerous scaling of Mount CGI was not impressive to me at all. So I kind of got off on the wrong foot, but then I love this Australian location where they shot most of the film. Really well done. And I was really looking forward to it. I like Charlize Theron in a very physical role. She's done this multiple times, always really compelling to watch, and is really exerting herself. But I did not like the Taron Egerton's performance at all. I didn't like the performance. And it's not just the performance. I think he's miscast as well. But not only did I, and I'm not going to spoil it here for people who haven't seen it, but I hated his backstory. That whole 20 minutes in that cave, I'm like, what is going on here? And then you think that pays off in some way, and it doesn't pay off at all. Like, you've introduced this whole other genre of movie into this movie, and then it doesn't pay off in any way. I was so irritated by this. And by the way, I was continuously thinking, there's a whole history of these Australian survival horror action type hybrid movies. And I was thinking all the different ways where, like, this guy could be some kind of predator of some kind. And then they have to, like, not to the extreme he is in this film, but then they have to work together in some way. Or that he's, like, testing her. He, like, thinks, like, I'm her friend. I'm trying to get her to, like, be the best version of herself, her overcoming this horrible thing that happened, where he sees this as kind of like a friendly rivalry and she sees him as a monster. But they make him so obviously an over-the-top monster by the time his full backstory is revealed. I'm like, what is the purpose of that? Especially because it doesn't pay off in any way. I was just like, this movie is a mess. I just was so angry by the time I got to the end that I could not possibly recommend it.
Yeah, it's one of those Netflix ones you just put on in the background and let play.
It could have been good, though. It could have been good, which is what frustrated me so much. It's like, this could have been good. Like, even the movie as it is, you just change a few things in the script before you start shooting anything, fix that script. And this could have been a good film. And it just drove me nuts that it was just so off the mark.
Yeah, and this director has done good films. Like, he did that movie Everest, which was based on a true story, and I don't think it had as much CGI as this film, but it really puts you there on the summit of Everest and was terrifying. But yeah, this one was a struggle to get through.
He's also got a really interesting career in that his last film was like in contention for an Academy Award for foreign. It made the long list, but not the short list for the Academy Awards. And in his home country, I think he's from, where is he from? It's not Iceland. Is he from Iceland? He might be from Iceland. But anyway, wherever his home country is, that he has these very well respected rom-coms or, romances, like this kind of like serious, mature romantic dramas or rom-coms in some cases that have been very financially successful. And he comes to the US and he makes these action movies. He made like Two Guns with Mark Wahlberg. And it's just like, it's so funny that like what he makes in the US versus what he made at home. And not only that, like his first film in the US was an action movie. I'm like, what made anyone think that this guy's going to make a good Mark Wahlberg movie based on his, his resume up to that point? But for whatever reason, he has these two very different careers. So maybe we watch his foreign films only. But I did like Everest, by the way. Everest is, I didn't love Everest, but Everest is the mountain climbing sequences are really good in that film.
It's based on a book called Into Thin Air, and it's one of the best books I've ever read. It was written by the journalist that was on that trip, and it is one of the most frightening experiences that I've gone through, and I just read it. Yeah, really cool. Good. Yeah, Into Thin Air, I think it's called.
Yeah, I think you're correct. Okay, next thing to talk about is something we might go week to week on, maybe not based on the pilot, but based on the trailer for the season, which is Half Man. What did you think about this? I had such a funny story to tell you. My sister, who's been on this podcast before, told me a very funny story based on this show. But anyway, tell me what you thought first.
I miss your sister. I love hearing her on the pod. So yeah, looking forward to hearing her again soon. Yeah, from the creator of Baby Reindeer, he doesn't pull any punches. I found this pretty fascinating. It reminded me of a relationship in a movie called Bully with they're like best friends, but but one of the kids is completely bullied by his best friend. So some of the aspects of the relationship between Richard Gadd and his offsider is Jamie Bell felt like that, even though they're played by younger actors in the pilot, mostly in the pilot, and just this dangerous man that you're sharing a room with and playing with you psychologically all the time, constantly. You're on the edge of fear and you're coming of age as well. I thought it was pretty fascinating, and I've got high hopes for this series.
Yeah, I didn't think the pilot worked that well for me. There were some interesting moments. I especially the scene that my sister, who said was incredibly cringy, was the three-way scene that they have in there. And but then I really liked the conversation they had afterwards. I thought that was really like a kind of an honest moment between them when they're not having all their artifice and one person has their wall up for their own reason, maybe because of their own sexual confusion as well. The other guy is performing this bulliness, which is also like a kind of armor to protect himself from the abuse he's probably had in the past from his father and from other circumstances he's been into. So it's like a moment where they actually have their guard down with each other. And I really like that scene. And it worked for me better than most of the rest of the pilot did. But I don't know if you saw the trailer for the season, and I won't even spoil it for you if you haven't. But I thought that what they tease in the trailer about how there's basically a revenge that's being sought here, and in a somewhat surprising way, I thought was a really intriguing way to set up the season. So very curious. It basically looks from the trailer that it is basically going to turn into a thriller, which I didn't really expect based on this opening episode. But I'm definitely curious. I'm definitely going to keep watching. Here's the funny story I'm going to tell. Oh, go ahead. Tell me the reaction.
I haven't seen the trailer, but it definitely looks curious. And it's also yet another TV show that is centered around a wedding. I think that was the framing device he's on his wedding day. Yeah. So.
The funny story was my sister called me up literally during that cringy scene. And she's like, what is happening on this show? She's like freaking out. And I'm trying to tell her, I'm like, oh yeah, I did watch it. And the reason I wanted to watch it was because this is the guy who did Baby Reindeer. And I don't know if you are more like this than my sister for sure, although you're probably somewhere in between, where I basically am researching what I'm going to watch next. And I find it very interesting to follow someone's career, whether it's the writer, whether it's a cinematographer, whether it's the actors' choices, of course, definitely directors, when you have like kind of a piece of their career, is like another piece in this puzzle, and following them and seeing like, what are they going to do next? And how do they, and looking at almost like one piece of work as in response or in conversation with the previous piece of work. So of course, after Baby Reindeer, which I thought was a complete knockout and just an utterly fascinating piece of work, just like so non-conventional, I could not wait to see what he was going to do next. So that's how I approach this material. I'm like, this is the follow-up to Baby Reindeer. That's my mindset. My sister watches more stuff than I do. She just continuously watches stuff. She just pounds through stuff, but she does not follow it the way I do. So she goes into things completely naively. And this is so funny. She calls me up and she tried to watch this with her boyfriend. And she says, you guys have to watch this. You might like it. I think it's a boxing show. And she's like, I like boxing. I like Rocky. And then she gets this. And by the way, her boyfriend already tapped out at this point. And I was just laughing because I'm like, could you imagine you think you're going to watch like a modern Rocky and you get this instead? What a shocking turn of events. But so everybody set expectations properly. Think Baby Reindeer, don't think Rocky if you're going to watch this. I just thought it's hilarious that she thought it had something to do with boxing for some reason.
That's pretty funny. Yeah. The scene that we're talking about is quite disturbing. It does remind me of other scenes like this. And I thought the payoff, I kind of picked it that it was happening, that he'd set it up. But yes, very disturbing. And from the creator of Baby Reindeer, it's going to go places that you don't particularly want to go. But I'm all for that.
Agreed. It's definitely transgressive, and that's part of the reason I'm interested in it. Let me tell you one thing that really, really bothered me, and tell me if it bothered you as much. The actors who were playing these 15, I think one kid's supposed to be 15, the other kid's supposed to be like 17, I think, because he's been in juvenile hall or something, so he's a few years older. These actors are like 26, 28 years old, I think they are, and it's obvious that these guys are nearly 30 years old, and it really bothered me because you also have like Jamie Bell and Richard Gadd, who are, I think Gadd is 35. So I'm like, why would you cast your younger version of yourself? And I know they're probably going to be playing multiple ages, but like, why wouldn't you get somebody who's like 22 playing between 17 and 27, and then you play between like 28 and 35, let's say? The idea of like getting 27-year-olds, it just, did it bother you the way it bothered me? Because it really did bother me.
Only at the start. It bothered me a little bit at the start, but I kind of aged them up a bit. I figured they were about 17 and 19. But I just went with it. Yeah, it didn't bother me that much.
Yeah, I thought they were like, it just, when they're trying to sell the younger guy, who honestly looks older, the other guy can pass more as a, like, he's probably supposed to be whatever, 17, 18. Could pass for like 21 or so. The other guy, the more naive guy, definitely looks his age. And I'm like, they're trying to pass this guy off at 15 years old with that horrible bowl cut. I'm like, I don't know. Man, the haircuts in this show, and Gadd himself, the haircuts here are absolutely insane. And the way he cuts his own hair, by the way, like Gadd's choices in Baby Reindeer as well. Like, who has that haircut? It's one of the worst haircuts I've ever seen.
I'll tell you who has it. Lloyd Christmas from Dumb and Dumber has that haircut.
Exactly. That's exactly correct. Yeah. By the way, if Gadd has like the worst mullet I've ever seen, possibly the worst mullet I've ever seen, and this is like in his real world life, like when you see him doing interviews and stuff, we barely touched on this, but Oscar Isaac in Beef has the most incredible mullet I've ever seen. Like, I think a mullet, which was popular when I was a kid, has always been an absolutely horrible haircut. I want Oscar Isaac's mullet. It's incredible. It's a beautiful haircut.
Move to Australia, mate, because every fifth guy has that haircut with a moustache as well. That's our national dress at the moment.
Anyway, I did love his mullet in Beef.
So good. Yeah, finished Beef. Do you want to move on to Beef? Finally finished.
Let's do it. Let's move on to Beef.
Okay, so my wife was pretty disappointed in the whole show. I was quite entertained, but some of the episodes were very up and very down. That the second to last episode, I think, on the aeroplane was completely bonkers. I thought it was quite silly, and it seemed like all the characters just acted super dumb just for the reasons of the plot.
Just to set up the situation, I agree. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was quite happy actually, was I happy where it all fell? Where the younger couple became who they were destined possibly to become. I thought was a little bit cheesy and I didn't really buy it. But still, I enjoyed the ride and I think it's a recommendation for sure. The younger couple, Kaylee Spaney, incredible. Love her work. And the Charles Melton character, love his work, even though he's a bit silly in certain parts of the show. Oscar Isaac is, of course, completely watchable. And I was never on board with Carey Mulligan's character all throughout the show. I'd never understood her. So that was a little bit of a downer for me. But yeah, I enjoyed watching it. I loved watching it night to night or whenever we had the chance. And yeah, bring on more beef, because it seems that creator goes wherever he wants. I was a little bit disappointed with the actor from Parasite. He had a big speech at the end. The way they have all these big speeches where you're supposed to pay attention and you're not really sure how it ties into everything, I thought kind of slowed the show down a little bit. But yeah, super interesting. And unlike a lot of things on television, which, yeah, is a recommendation.
Yeah, I recommend it as well. Although the last couple episodes really didn't really work for me. I kind of did like the whole full circle symbolism at the very end. And like you mentioned, that the whole destination of these people in their inescapable cycles. Also, this very interesting early on, you're thinking like, oh, that the Kaylee Spaney character is the Carey Mulligan character. And then you start to be like, oh, wait a second, everyone's misdiagnosing her. She's actually the Oscar Isaac character. So that was a very interesting kind of, the way these people's personalities start to merge together. All that was very interesting to me. But like you mentioned, it just becomes so outlandish to be outlandish. And it's not like in season 1, by the way, some pretty crazy things happened towards the end of that season 2, but it all felt very earned. And this felt utterly contrived. But like you said, I want to see more of this. I want to see more of this, people taking these kinds of swings. And as disappointed as I was by parts of it, I think that overall I do recommend it. And I thought the first half of the season is excellent, really excellent.
Yeah. Got to echo everything that you say. What else was I going to say? Oh, the Eunice character kind of disappeared at the end. I was quite interested in to see. I was way more interested in Eunice than I was with the chairwoman and her like lover or her second husband. So yeah, and Eunice, I was a bit disappointed that Eunice kind of disappeared. I wanted to see her shake up the younger couple a bit more, even though she did a lot. I thought that she could have had something to do at the end where, yeah.
They very much did not try to turn her into a femme fatale, which I did think was going to be a direction it went in, but very much not, which I thought was an interesting choice. But like you said, she's one of the more interesting characters that kind of disappears over a wall, and we only hear her on the phone after that.
Oh, it was great when she jumped into the back of that truck, wasn't it? So
it's
good.
Hilarious, yes.
And yeah, the one-way love story between Charles Melton's character and her was classic.
Anything else we want to talk about?
What else was on our list? You saw a movie, didn't you? Mother Mary, which I've seen the trailer. Maybe you don't want to drop your opinion of that yet. Well, let's just move on to Euphoria.
Yeah, maybe we wait on Mother Mary, which will probably be like available to rent any day now. And I have a lot of things to say about that. I think you would like to see that in the theater. The music aspect of it was, I've listened to the music at home and like watching the Tron Ares film, the impact was not the same. And of course, that's also in combination with the visuals, but also there's the sound quality of being in the theater. So I do think there's like a real audio-visual aspect to it, but we can save that for a later digression. I don't think anyone's watching that film. So maybe
that director, David Lowery, I'm not sure how he gets given films. Every film I've watched his is a real struggle to get through. So yeah.
Then you might not like this. Yeah. Like I see this, it's like a very non-commercial film, which I really liked, but I have vibed with most of his films. And if you're not vibing with him, I don't know if this is going to be the one that fixes it for you. Although the music might put it over the top for you, possibly. Yeah.
The trailer looks like it's a super interesting film, even if it fails miserably. So yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out when I can see it.
Okay. So, one more thing to bring up. We are definitely going to talk about Euphoria. People, hang in there. But before now that you have Apple, I wanted to mention to you that this very week, there is a new comedy slash horror series coming on Apple that has gotten universally rave reviews. It's called Widow's Bay. Have you seen the trailer for this?
I have not seen the trailer. I think I've heard of it, but I don't know where.
Matthew Rhys stars in it, and he's like the mayor of a town. He's trying to rehabilitate this town, has a really bad reputation, but nefarious things are happening. And apparently the reviews have been that early on, it's very much comedy forward. And about halfway through, there's definitely horror elements in it, but then halfway through it goes into true horror. And apparently everybody's just really ecstatic about this. And this comes from one of the creators of the show is Hiro Murai, who is just like has that?
Just for his name. I love that guy.
Right?
I love
everything
exactly. What he does. Yeah.
Atlanta, Dave, Station 11, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, right?
The cooking show. What's the cooking show? The Bear. He's in
the
that.
Bear.
He does that too. Yeah.
Yes. So it's just like he has literally batted 1,000. So anything he does, I'm in for it. And of course, the reviews have been stellar. So can't wait. And I'm a horror fan too. So can't wait to see just like a prestige horror show. Like I can't wait to see it. So anyway, so something else for everybody to watch, especially if you are into horror. But if it's too horrifying for you, if you guys are afraid of that, it does start off as a comedy. So maybe you can like ease you into the horror aspect. You can always tune out if it gets too scary for you. But anyway, another thing I'm definitely going to be watching, and I know you're a horror fan, of course, as well, Darren. So one more thing to watch, along with Half Man and Euphoria.
100% on Rotten Tomatoes, Widow's Bay has, whatever that means. So
there you go. I know whatever that means.
And you love to talk about the second season of Atlanta, how every episode is a horror episode.
It's a horror film, yes.
Yeah, and I think Hiro Murai directs every episode of that.
Did you, by the way, I had mentioned that to you when you were catching up on the show. Did you pick up on that? Did you agree with my theory on that when you did watch it?
Oh, totally. I love that season so much. I didn't continue Atlanta after that. I'm not sure how many seasons Atlanta. I just loved that so much. I think I got rid of Disney at the time, so I haven't got back to it. But it's there. It's waiting for me when I get to it.
You definitely want to watch that to the end. It's it's not as great as season 2, but there are some of the absolute best episodes of that show are yet to come if you watch it. And when you get to the ending, I can't wait to have a conversation with you about what you think is happening at the end of that episode. So do catch up with that at some point.
Okay. All right. I'll add it to the list.
Add it to the list, of the infinite list, of course.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Okay, let's talk about Euphoria, finally. Darren, I was wrong, by the way. I said this was only going to be 6 episodes long. That was what I had read in one of the articles, one of the review articles. Maybe they released 6 episodes to the critics, but maybe there's more because it's an 8-episode season, just like the first 2 seasons. And this episode is called The Ballad of Paladin. What did you think about this wedding episode? We already were surprised when we mentioned this last week that they're going to go with a wedding in episode 3 of an 8-episode season. What a surprise. But what do you think this does functionally here in the show? Because you get everybody together, and instead of being like the culmination point of the season, it's like the end, the death of the fantasy of these people's former images of each other, or how do you read this moment in the show?
That is interesting, isn't it? A very entertaining episode. This is a very entertaining show, even though most of my thoughts are going towards Margot's got money troubles. I still really enjoy watching this as a cinematic spectacle. The lasting image for me is of Sydney Sweeney crying with a blood nose while her husband's getting assaulted in the background. Just some stunning images here. And yeah, really interesting. I like Jules. I want to see where Jules's relationship goes with her plastic surgery sugar daddy. And I like seeing Maddie as more of a interesting character rather than a kind of like an operatic character, which Sydney Sweeney's character has that all under wraps now. So that's what I'm kind of holding on to. I'm not super interested in Nate and his money troubles.
Yeah.
Nate's
got money troubles.
He certainly does. And he's going to have to get some decent shoes because with one less toe, it's going to be difficult for him to get around. But yeah, Maddie and Jules I'm into at the moment.
What did you think about this whole, again, probably my favorite part of this episode was this opening narration from Rue, where she somehow has this. I'm very interested if this is going to pay off at the end of the show, because she seems to know things about Jules' experience that she couldn't possibly know, right? It's like this third party omniscient view of things. But what did you make of this, her narration again, her making this connection that, she went to become an artist, and then what the show continues to ask about, like, the commodification of youth, of beauty, and like, is that a form of art, or is art its own kind of prostitution when you sell your wares or compromise yourself for somebody else? But that this is the best that Jules can do. And I find it just utterly, just visually stunning. And I'm not sure how it pays off here, but the image that I think about is when the plastic surgeon has completely wrapped her in plastic. And what do you think that represents? Like, this girl trapped by this guy who like luxuriates money on her, but she is literally wrapped up in plastic at this moment, like as some kind of collectible object of some kind. What did you think about this? I just thought it was just such a stunning moment. And of course, with the title placard over it, like that 1970s font, it just kind of really an amazing moment. But what do you think is going on here? Which by the way, I'm asking it earnestly. I'm not sure I know exactly what's going on here.
Oh, I totally agree with you. What an incredible image. I mean, I've heard of this as a sexual fetish, but never encountered it in real life. And he says that she's perfect. Like, her breasts are perfect and she's just perfect.
Her skin is poreless.
So, yeah. So for him to wrap her, that's so interesting. I love that. So she transitioned when she was quite young. So before she went through puberty, that's all this is new to me. So it's very interesting to see a show like this try to explain this kind of stuff to an audience, even being all super pulpy and everything. I appreciated it. But to wrap her like that and to have her as a piece of art herself that he's bought and he's paid for, and he is continuing to support her in this penthouse. Super interesting, an amazing visual. And so she has become art herself. She's not interested in studying anymore. She just wants to create her art and be a piece of art. But where is that going to lead for her? Because if you're just a commodity, how do you grow as a person, which obviously we think that she should. I've also been thinking about Rue's omniscient narration, and I think it's a great way to get the show all together and to get all the characters together. I think it's a really cool thing to do, and I'm on board with that as well. I've been thinking about that since you mentioned it last week. Yeah,
I love the narration she's doing. I mean, maybe that's the Sam Levinson's surrogate, that, he said that Euphoria was somewhat autobiographical based on his kind of crazy. He went to rehab when he was a teenager and went to school in Hollywood. His father was a famous director and just basically had a really tough time at this. It was very complicated. And of course, this is, I'm sure, extremely heightened. But I do wonder if the Rue character, who has she? I don't even remember if we're supposed to. She represents that she wants to be a writer, but I can imagine that once again, as a surrogate for him, that he is maybe looking at his friends and knows some of these people have their own issues, and he is just extrapolating on them and creating like a fictional world around it, a narrative around it. So that's interesting. Like, just the idea that Rue is maybe working on something creative in and of herself on her own, which of course is thematically in the series as well, because you think about the Maud Apatow character last season, where she created like a show about these people, right? So that, of course, is Euphoria on stage, right? So it's like some aspect of that that's being created here. But again, it's my favorite part of the show. It's just this kind of floating and seeing these kind of amazing visual representations and these kind of like almost didactic. I mean, it can be very heavy-handed, but beautiful images and beautiful and ugly images at the same time. And the narration is kind of telling us what to think about them, but it still is like, I really love that aspect of the show. And like you said, just the production here is just so opulent and so impressive. And I mean, the wedding scene, I couldn't help but think, by the way, like you have the wedding and the wedding dress and how structural that is. And is that like kind of like another Kakumi of a body, like another woman, like that's trying to like, propped up like an image, a prop of her own making in so many ways. But of all the dresses, by the way, that's I thought the least outlandish, believe it or not, because I mean, Maddie's dress is incredible. What an incredible dress Maddie's wearing in this thing. I don't even know how she keeps it on, but it is. I don't know if you could get away with showing up at the wedding dressed this way, but it's pretty impressive stuff.
Just the hint of butt crack.
Oh my God. And the crucifix swinging above her butt crack is just incredible. Just an incredible outfit.
Amazing dress, amazing entrance. Jules tries to top it as well with this kind
That's barely a dress at all. It's astounding. Like, could you imagine showing up at a wedding like this? I mean, like, I've been to weddings, by the way, where people are like, someone will show up very like dressed up in a very provocative way, and it just looks kind of trashy. But these people are showing up in like that. Like, this is like $25,000 dress. It's pretty hilarious.
Well, next time I get invited to a wedding, I'm going to rethink my dress code to a little bit Euphoria, just a hint of Euphoria, maybe. Sydney Sweeney, the slow motion of Sydney Sweeney running down the aisle with her dress and her breasts trying their best to pop out. I mean, they know exactly what they're doing.
Exactly. I think their breasts know exactly what they're doing.
Everyone involved.
What did you think about another hilarious aspect of this is the idea that they went to class to learn this choreography.
It's all time. The dance was all time. That scene, and they're having a fight while they're doing the steps. Yeah. I mean, it's borderline genius. I loved it.
And of course, the key point here is that this all, like, the whole charade is falling apart, right? Like, you have not only that this entire, he can't afford this wedding. He's hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. He's basically has a pyramid scheme at this point where he's borrowing from one friend to pay the other. This is inevitably going to come to light. And he's just pretending like, oh no, I'll get you the money next week. Only for the whole thing to blow up in his face. And this guy shows up and threatens him in front of all his friends. He makes it completely clear, but they still have that moment where they escape together. They get in the car. He's going to get home and he's going to make it all fine. But of course, like you mentioned already, that final moments where she gets punched in the face, she's bleeding on her dress, and I was supposed to, this is supposed to be the best day of my life, she says, right? And while Nate's getting his toe clipped off in the background, at least it's the pinky toe. It's very telling that they go for the pinky toe. They go it's almost like they're saying, next time it'll be a lot worse. You go for the big toe. Now you got really problems getting it around.
Oh, I loved how they followed through with it. They didn't just sugarcoat it. They actually chopped it off. You can see why he was so triggered about the flowers at the wedding.
Of course.
When all his money troubles due to this endangered flower that they found on his residential development. Whether that's true or not, he's still got flowers on the brain, and they're triggering him in left, right, and center. But the flowers did look incredible at that wedding. Also triggered by the guy who lent him the money, right? Who was like, you owe me hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you're like, you can't get me money this week. And he walks in there and he's like, okay, well, what did this dress cost tens of thousands of dollars? These flowers cost $50,000. He's just seeing his money out there. I like how he even throws it in his face going like, oh, but this was all set up months ago. And he goes, did you pay the bill months ago? Because that's money that could have gone to me.
that you have not paid me. So you lose a toe. That's how it goes.
He's got a point. He's got a really good point. And I do like the couple that are friends with them, that they're all their life savings or their kids' college funds with Nate. Yeah, I liked that kind of struggle with them trying to understand if their money is completely gone.
What else do I want to say about the wedding? Oh, how interesting is it? I think of the blood on, I didn't think about this. It came to me in there's a featurette that shows behind the scenes on how they made the episode. And they mentioned when everybody's dancing together, that apparently they didn't use it in the show, but there's a sequence where they're all dancing together. And they made the reference that it is like a throwback or kind of a visual reference to the Deer Hunter, the wedding scene in the Deer Hunter. And I always remembered the Deer Hunter when they're supposed to drink the wine and not get any on the dress. And we see, nobody else sees it, but we see it, that some of the blood drips onto the dress. And I always thought about that with Sydney Sweeney, with the blood on her dress, which of course a bloody, the blood on the wedding night is supposed to represent something else historically. And I thought it was pretty funny that they're like, she gets bloody on her wedding night, but it's a whole different type of situation here.
Interesting. I'm due a rewatch of The Deer Hunter. I've only seen it once, and that was, over 20 years ago. So, that's waiting there for me as well.
Yeah, another interesting wedding sequence. And, I don't know how much paralleling there is there other than this one reference point, but definitely a very classic wedding scene in the movie.
Can we talk about Jules and Nate's dad's conversation?
Yes. Wow. What a great conversation. Yeah, I agree. Let's do it.
And also, it shows a lot of restraint from Sam Levinson. I was expecting something a lot more fireworks, but almost mature from both sides. Again, great to see Eric Dane play. He seemed actually as a better actor this episode than last episode. He seemed like he was holding things together really well. Knowing what he's dealing with, I mean, it's stunning to see him on screen, and to see Jules has always been older than she is. She acts older than she should. But yeah, very mature conversation between these two, and I was surprised, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting as well. And like you mentioned, it's kind of a grace note to this character, which maybe was planned to be some kind of villainous role here. I actually start thinking that maybe in the context of the show, maybe he'll become a sacrificial lamb he could redeem himself in a way if he takes some of the financial blame, let's say, for example, and saves Nate. That would be kind of like a way to redeem him and give him like a final arc. And of course, a nice way to send off the actor as well, considering this is the last thing he did. But that scene is really fascinating where she's, he compliments her and then they kind of acknowledge what happened in the past. But then he does kind of do the whole thing where it's like, well, you wouldn't believe it. I went to jail for, having sex with some guy who was underage. It was just a few months away from being 18 years old. And then he goes, lied about his age. And he's like, just like you did. So he kind of throws it in her own lap there. And she kind of throws it in his face too, being like, well, you do like the kind of little clothes, don't you think? One way or the other. So, but yeah, so it's a very interesting dynamic there between the two of them. And it does seem a little more redeemed there. A couple of really interesting things. I definitely want to get your thoughts on this. So maybe this will flesh out what you were about to mention, which is, what did you think about him? Two very important pieces of dialogue here. Him talking to during the speech, the wedding speech, saying a lot of you people out there might know me for the wrong reasons, but I've kind of reformed myself. And, there's just the irony of that on this wedding day that Nate still has this thing hanging over him. But in counterpoint that to Cassie's mom being like, I remember my wedding date, the last time I was ever happy with your father. So it's like, honey, it's all downhill from here. And by the way, it definitely is.
Oh my God, Cassie's mum, as she's walking her down the aisle and telling her the story about how terrible her wedding and getting married was. It's just incredible. And Cassie goes from it's the happiest day of her life, and by the end of the walk, it's like it could be the start of her nightmare. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Oh, and then speaking of her mom, what do you think about that during her speech where she's just like, he picked the right one. Sometimes they bring the wrong one home. And you see Maddie in the background.
Again,
but
restraint.
he made the right
Yeah.
choice.
Beautiful. Maddie just does the slight eye roll when normally she would be throwing her plate in the air and making a scene. She just takes it on the chin because she's matured a bit. She's not in high school anymore. And coming towards the end of the episode, she's dealing with a few other things like paying rent for her mum or living in a less desirable neighborhood. So she's actually a little bit part of the real world rather than this crazy opera.
Yeah, it's true. And yeah, I mean, she's going to have a lot of growing up to do and a lot of trauma to come. We could talk about the wedding even more. This is actually a very long episode and packed with a lot of incident, but we can't skip the huge stuff that's happening, of course, in Rue's storyline, which I think is, I actually don't love this part of the story that much, but it's so important to what Levinson's trying to say. I've been mentioning since the very first episode that this is a Western, and here we go again. The parrot, Paladin, is named after the character from Have Gun Will Travel, as you know, which is a Western. And then there's this conversation that's had by Alamo's right-hand man. I forget his name now, but this, great character, by the way, that he is saying like, oh, I always loved Westerns. And they kind of make some racialized remark being like, oh, you're a black guy and you like Westerns. Why is that? And he's like, oh, he likes the simplicity of the moral code of it. And you're like, do you see yourself as a cowboy or an Indian? And he sees cowboy. And then he throws the money through the air and like finger shoots it with his, finger gun. And but he also plucks the feather from the bird who he's just killed, basically, by putting the pellet in its water, and then tucks the feather behind his ear, which of course makes you think about the Native Americans with the stereotypical Native American with the feather in the cap. So there's a lot going on here, a lot about this Western milieu that they're trying to explore here. Of course, I've brought up the gold rush a few times and how like everybody went west. And Rue brings up in her narration that cryptocurrency and OnlyFans is like the new modern gold rush, right? So this is all very present in what Levinson's trying to say. I'm not 100% clear on all of it yet, but I do appreciate the big swing he's going for here. But what did you think about this? I love this character, by the way, this hitman character, or if we want to call him that. But what did you think about this whole set of events?
Oh, I knew as soon as I saw him a couple of episodes back that this guy was going to be something, and he's super fun. Oh yeah, like you, I'm not sure if I'm fully on board with the whole slow motion money flying through the air and all the hillbillies kind of looking at it, and he's playing them like a fiddle. Yeah, I'm not all the way there, but it's super fun. And Alamo is also dropping a bit more history lessons as he goes. And yeah, interesting about the gold rush and cryptocurrency. If you're not first, you're last. If you're not in there before everybody is, then you get nothing, which is interesting. And yeah, but yeah, great scene. Super fun scene. Poor old Paladin falling off his perch. Yeah, I feel a bit sad for him. He was just a friendly bird. But I feel like Laurie is going to take it pretty hard, and she's going to come back at Alamo, in major ways. And maybe she already has with the DEA picking up Rue near the end. I don't know.
Yeah, very interesting. One of my favorite things about this episode of TV, by the way, is that not only can you watch this season of show as a standalone thing, I actually was really impressed that this episode, like honestly, if you have never seen an episode of Euphoria, this is a whole movie. This story is just you can pretty much watch just this one thing as a standalone episode of television, period, like almost as a bottle episode, because it has so much stuff inside of it, right? And the context you need is in Rue's, narration at the beginning, and then, her being pulled over at the end. It's kind of like, the chickens coming home to roost there at the final moments. But, that could be just a wrap up of this episode. But of course, we know inevitably that now Rue is going to have to potentially turn in somebody. Is it going to be Alamo? Is it going to be Laurie? Who are they really after? I want to go back to a couple of things you said there, which is like, I love the whole Alamo thing where he's talking about how Rue is saying, well, someday I want to be legitimate. And he gets really offended by this, going like, what do you mean legitimate? And she's like, like have a like legal business. And he's like, what's legal? Like we used to run numbers and now it's the lottery and it's legalized. And of course, it's the same thing for pharmaceuticals, where you can't deal drugs, but pharmaceuticals make trillions of dollars off of pharmaceutical substances, right? So it's like, Yeah, it's illegal because it depends on who's actually making the money. So what does legit actually mean? And that's really interesting. Like you mentioned, it's like kind of a history lesson there, but also tells you again that, yeah, all that matters is the hustle and everybody's hustling somebody. So just don't get caught, basically, right? And that could be the crypto people as well, right? Oh, by the way, last week, someone emailed me and made a joke that I didn't even realize until I was editing the episode. But I was saying that the people who got rich during the gold rush were the people who sold pics. I meant pics, P-I-C-K-S. But, OnlyFans, you sell pics, P-I-C-S. So anyway, I'm like, yes, I meant picks like the picks and axes. But going back to that point you made about the gold rush, there's that saying that everybody went west to find gold and get rich. And some people did, right? And some people who were looking for gold actually found oil, right? That's the other thing that happened as well. But the gold rush, the people who did get rich from the gold rush were the people who sold the picks and axes, right? And that's the same metaphor for now, like with whether it's AI or whether it's cryptocurrency. The people who like build the platforms, these like fantasies of the success you're going to have, they get rich. But the people who are actually, the commodities that are being sold, they're just a tool for those people to get rich. So they become part of the machinery. And the fact that, hey, you can get rich too on OnlyFans, for example, is how you continuously draw more people to the platform. But it's all smoke and mirrors, right? In the end, that's just kind of like the people who are really getting rich are the people who are managing you. And that's what Maddie sees probably in Cassie.
Very interesting. Yeah. Also on the hustle, which I loved, is the stripper with the neck brace. They said she couldn't do it, but she's raking in the money with those diamantes on there. Yeah, good on her. I'm a big fan of hers.
That was great. I did love that. Yeah, for sure. What else did we got there with about Maddie? What did you think about her leaving the wedding? I find it really interesting that in the narration, it says that Maddie didn't know. So we don't know. Maddie doesn't even know. Maddie doesn't know if she's there to bust them up, Nate and Cassie, for everything she's been through, or whether it's there for the opportunity that, Cassie might represent. So I thought that was really interesting that she's like, I don't even know why I'm here. But she does leave. She doesn't make a big stink. She doesn't make a giant scene like she did when she was younger. She just leaves the wedding.
Yeah, I think she's playing the long game. I think she wants Cassie as a client. She sees how incredible she could be and how much of a goldmine she could be because of how dramatic she is. And she will do anything that Maddie suggests in the future, especially with this crumbling marriage, which has barely started. Yeah, I appreciated the maturity from Maddie, and I know that she's got a story to come.
The only other, I have a couple of funny points here. The one is I love BB showing up, this like random girl who's been like just basically showed up. I think they called her Vape Girl for like the whole first season. Now she just randomly popped up in season 2 here and there, just like the third wheel all the time in the background. And she shows up extremely pregnant, which I found very funny in this episode.
No, look, Maddie, did you change your number?
Right.
Silent and then a little bit of a nod. So good.
And what else was funny here? I love the ice sculptures where she's like, oh, I look so fat in my ice sculpture. And he's just like, don't worry, it'll melt and you'll be thinner.
But not my boobs.
Yeah, what if they melt first? That'd be terrible. He gets a champagne cork to the face. I love that whole sequence when she's freaking out to try to take the cork out of the champagne and gets him right in the eye. And he doesn't. I mean, he's still trying to put on a performance. That's what's kind of fascinating about what the show, I think, is trying to do here, is the idea that everybody's selling an image of themselves. It's all bullshit, right? And it's like, this is how the world works. And this is how we interact with each other. And then at the center of this is this wedding, the most opulent version of this bullshit story that's being told. I'm rich. Look at this huge wedding I can afford. And of course, it all comes crashing down that same day. So I do think that it's like the pivot in the show. And, Euphoria loves to go like deep into the gutters. And maybe this is the pivot where it starts to all go downhill for everybody.
Yeah, I can't imagine having a massive wedding like that, and where you don't even know some of the guests. When she met the debt collector Nars, and she's like, "Oh, I haven't met you." It's like, it's your own wedding and you don't know the guests. It's bizarre.
I think that happens at every wedding. I mean, unless it's like a very, very intimate situation.
Yeah. We eloped, so we had a slightly different.
You did it the right way then. You did it the right way. I don't know what I was going to say. So yeah, I really like this episode. I thought it was really solid. I thought this was really the most cohesive episode they've had so far this season. And I think the show has some momentum and obviously setting some pieces here. Nate's downfall. Cassie's definitely going to have to support the family to some extent and maybe become empowered through OnlyFans. Rue is over a barrel here and has to decide how she gets out of it and who does she have to betray. Oh, that's an interesting thing I want to bring up. I love the fact that, we have this whole thing where don't go back to Lori, and we saw what a horrible person Lori is. But then Lori at one point misses Rue and wants to bring her back into the fold. And I love that she says, remember Rue, the grass is always greener by the septic tank.
Yeah. Great line, isn't it?
Yeah. A lot of great lines in this episode. So pretty solid stuff.
Well, it's interesting you say that now there's 8 episodes. I was always thinking of this as 6 episodes. So there's plenty of story to come, which is actually really good. I also enjoyed this episode. And it's interesting you mentioned that it could be a standalone movie as well. I mean, so cinematic and so eventful and hilarious and horrible at one. I mean, it's everything we want from Euphoria.
Right, exactly. Beautiful to look at. Absolutely horrible. Terrible people doing terrible things to each other. But riveting, of course, as always. So, yeah, I'm very definitely intrigued. And I'm even on board. I'm very curious to see how, what the broader metaphor of that's being represented here. Oh, by the way, as Levinson is wont to do, and always represent things in the most over the top possible way, but then undercut it somewhat. I love the fact that we see that Rue is a gun runner at the beginning of the show. I kind of buried the lead by not mentioning that right away. But sanding off the serial numbers off of the guns and selling them. And she goes, I know people in America are a little wary about all of these gun sales, but in my defense, they're mostly going to Mexicans. So all these guns are going to Mexico. So don't worry, everybody. A little bit of Sam Levinson's extremely dark humor.
There's also some 3D printed guns in there as well, which is interesting.
And this is definitely there are a couple of scenes here where the whole Quentin Tarantino Pulp Fiction-y aspect of this is really at its most obvious, but still a lot of fun, especially with the Western references. This guy knows the actor who played this Paladin character in a Western from the 1950s, the Old West. All right, Darren. So we will reconvene next week. We'll be talking about Half Man, probably. And check out Widow Bay. Check out Margot's Got Money Troubles. More Euphoria. Too many things to cover.
Yeah, there's a lot going on at the moment, and it's all pretty interesting. So it's, just got to carve out a little bit of time, and you're going to reward yourself with some quality shows and quality stuff to talk about.
Oh, The Devil Wears Prada 2 is coming out next week. Is your wife a big fan of the first film?
Do you know what? I don't know. I've never seen the first film, so I don't think we've ever had a discussion about it. So,
I recommend you watch the first film. I recommend you watch the first film with her, if she hasn't seen it, but you should watch it as well. That first movie is one of those movies that I'm I don't need to see that. It's one of those ladies movies. That movie is fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah, okay.
Check it out.
All right. I'll put myself out there and I'll watch that. Why not?
Yeah, watch it with her. She'd probably love it. So.
Let's do it. Yeah,
I don't know if the second one's going to be good, but the first one's fantastic. You got to get I'm a little overqualified. Get through the first 15 minutes. First 15 minutes should be I don't know if I want to watch this movie. Trust me. Once the character Miranda, played by
Meryl Streep,
Once Meryl Streep shows up, it's incredible. Every word she says is incredible.
Okay, well, that's a left field recommendation for me, but I'll give it a go. Yes,
it's very good. You got to get through the first the first 15 minutes. It's going to be a rom-com, and then but once she gets that internship, it's all aces across the board.
Okay, great.
All right, Darren. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, Victor. Cheers.